Awesome. Welcome, Royeal. Saying it wrong.
It's Royale.
Royale. I knew I had it right the first time. I'm just questioning myself. Royale, as y'all can see, I'm clearly not on video because I am not having a good day. But I am happy because I brought this person here that's really going to pour life into y'all, and that is Royale. And she is literally here to talk to you about what to expect in law school and what you should be involved in. If you're not really sure or you're not really confident about your law school journey, this is that type of talk. It is literally the what to expect. Of course, we're going to go over some items that are in my book, Dear Future Lawyer, some things and places that you might experiences, some mindsets that might go through, of course. But really just the characters and the way that law school is. Like nobody really prepares you that law school is really like high school. And if you could get through high school, you can get through law school. You really can. And a lot of times people don't really prepare you for the reverse, right? That law school is very much so not like college at all. And you actually have to be better than everybody else. And that's a very hard thing to grapple with if you are an overachiever, like most of us who enter law school that are all type A personalities. So if you have trouble dealing with that, this is the talk for you. And if you don't know what you should be involved in, Royale is literally connecting herself to you as a resource. So this is another trademark lawyer. If you are a part of Trademark That Thursdays, you know that Royale was actually an attendee at the event and has volunteered her time and service to you all. So let me tell you about inspiring people to inspire. That is Royale's first objective. She just jumped into being a speaker, didn't have any preparation, literally just told her what to do before we started. So that's all I want to tell y'all a little bit about what happened and kind of where we are. If you want to read her full bio, if you go to the registration page for this, you can actually read the full bio in detail. But if you don't have that in front of you, don't worry. I got it for you and I shall read it for you. So without further ado, I just want to let y'all know that this is our May 2022 guest speaker. The first Mondays at 7 p.m., we will have a topic. These topics are usually pitched by the girls in the group or online in our Facebook groups. If you have a topic that you would like to hear, if you are a Law Sister Circle member or a non Law Sister Circle member, and you would be interested in finding out something about a safe space for minority women interested in law, definitely pitch it to us at Neena the Last Friend at gmail.com. That's NEENATHELASTBRAND at gmail.com. This is a little bit about Royale. Royale Frasier-Lewis, because we'll get it right, is a first generation attorney from a small town in Florida. She received her undergraduate degree in psychology. Ooh, girl, two birds of a feather flock together. From the University of South Florida. Shortly after getting married, Royale and her husband were offered the opportunity to move to Texas, and start a new chapter. So they did. She attended the University of North Texas Dallas College of Law. During her time at UNT, she served as the president of the Women in Law Student Association, the chair of the Black Law Student Association Advocacy Program, and served on the Board of Advocates. Royale competed in several moot court competitions and won awards for her written and oral advocacy skills. After graduating law school and passing the bar exam, she worked as a trial attorney for a personal injury law firm. After working there, she decided that she wasn't going to stay there. She started her own firm, Frasier-Lewis Law Group, where she helps clients protect their intellectual property and represents them in personal injury matters. Look, best of both worlds, y'all got to get it both. Royale is passionate about educating her clients on their rights and how the law can help them. And now she's here, y'all, to educate you on how to get prepared for law school. So if y'all are ready and excited, Janelle, it's definitely going to be recorded. You don't have to worry about it. It is also live streaming on my Facebook page right now. So if you cannot watch it via here, if you are my Facebook friend, which most of you girls are, just go over to my Facebook profile and you should see this live stream. But without further ado, Royale, this is for you, girl. Tell them about you. Tell them about what's going on with your life. And I am going on mute because this is your show. So tell them about what you got out of law school. Kind of your like, I guess, shell shock because law school is like a real shell shock. So tell them about your shell shock, the sticker prize, whatever about law school.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Just to give you a little background about how I approached law school, So I was very much an overachiever in high school and college. I was one of those people that was a part of all of the organizations. And so I got to law school and said, no more. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to keep my head down. I'm going to study and I'm going to graduate and pass this bar. Because everyone that I had talked to about law school had told me how hard it is, how much work you're going to have to do, how much reading you're going to have to do. So everyone just made it seem like I wasn't going to have time to do anything else. So my 1L year, that's essentially what I did. I just kind of kept my head down. Whenever someone tried to get me to join an organization or do something extracurricular, I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I don't have time for it. And then towards the end of my 1L year, I started to see that I really needed a community. For those of you that are in law school, you know that law school is very much a trade school, right? Like what you knew beforehand doesn't matter how good of a writer you were in college. It doesn't matter how good of whatever. By the time you get to law school, you essentially have to strip all of that away, and your professors are going to be teaching you how to think like a lawyer, how to analyze issues, and how to write how they want you to write. So I was starting to see that there were classes that I was struggling with because the way that the classes were taught just didn't mesh with how I learned. And I really needed a community of people so that I could lean on. And so towards the end of my 1L year, that's when I said, okay, I need to start meeting people. I need to be around like-minded individuals so they can help me through this. It was property. Property was the class that had me struggling, y'all, like struggling. So I joined the Women in Law Student Association. And then towards the end of my 1L year, the president and the vice president were in their 3L and they were evening students. So they were in their last year. And they essentially had nobody to run the organization. So me and my friends stepped up and said, okay, we'll be president and vice president. And then that opened a whole nother can of worms. And the next thing you know, I'm in Bolsa, and I did the advocacy chair for the Black Law Student Association. And yeah, it just kind of opened up a rabbit hole of organizations, but it gave me exactly what I needed, a community of people. I had access to 2Ls and 3Ls. I could get their outlines, get their notes, and they could kind of help me. Okay, this is how this professor approaches this class. So when you take this class, you need to think about their exams this way. And it gave me the resources that I needed. So this is
Hold up. So you said something there I wanted to go back to. So tell them about property because I don't think we talk about this enough. And I think that nobody really understands that word property until we get to law school. I know I was not fully prepared for a property law class. So can you break that down? Because I don't want this to be the last time that property is heard for the first time in law school and not prior to law school, because I think someone has to mentally prepare you for what property really entails, because you think it's easy and then it's just not, because some interest must vest if it. Anyways, I'm not going to do it with y'all know what I mean, who out here taking law school. So talk to them about property for a second.
property is like, it's a whole nother ball game. And it's exactly like you said, people don't prepare you for property in general. So like the whole purpose of law school is to introduce you to these different areas of the law, specifically the ones that are going to be covered on the bar. And one of them is property. So in property, you're learning about like real property. We covered like some landlord tenant issues. It was just it was so boring. It was so boring. And I found that I do better in classes where there's kind of like a checklist, right? Like I can kind of work my way through steps. So like I did really well in civil procedure classes, legal writing, criminal torts, because it either is assault or it's not assault. There's no gray area. And property is full of the gray area. It's nothing but gray. And my professor he taught the property class like it was this theoretical concept. And so I'm in my first year of law school, and I'm already struggling trying to wrap my head around the Socratic method and how to think through issues. And you have me in a theory class for something that I need to know for the bar. So it was very, very frustrating. But I ended up meeting a friend in it was a yoga club I joined at law school. And one of my friends just spoke the property language. And so he could sit through our hour and a half lectures and walk out and get 100s on all of the quizzes because that class just came naturally to him. So that was one of the best parts about joining organizations in college is because, or in law school, because I got to meet different people who think differently, who approach situations differently. And that's something that I wouldn't have got had I not gone out and met different people and joined these organizations, because the only reason I survived property was because of him. Just that class was the devil.
It was. And I just want to let y'all know, if you don't know what I'm talking about or what Royale's talking about, I would advise you to really research adverse possession and about vested interest and all those things before you get into a law class. I'm not saying that you have to, right? You can definitely do it without, but they have free Barbary books and all that to at least make you feel less lost when you get there, because you really don't want to be learning this for the first time with your classmates. At least I didn't want to be, because you actually just want to try landlord tenant law. That's all I'm going to tell you, is that try landlord tenant law. If you learn landlord tenant law in property, you will finally see its practical use. So that's the only part of property I actually cared about, and adverse possession. All the rest of property can, anyways, kiss my booty. That's all I can say. Cause I got no positive things to say about property. But landlord tenant law and adverse possession are probably the most interesting concepts of property law overall. So if you could just learn those two things, I promise you, you'll be much better for it before you go into law school. So just want to make sure y'all are aware that property is everyone's bane of existence. It's not just somebody's or just a few people. Like, we feel like we're doing math problems when we get into the vested interest and whose interest is going to vest. We
Girl.
are literally overwhelmed. So if you could just save yourself the trouble and master those two key concepts that we mentioned earlier, property with adverse possession and property with landlord tenant law, you'll be much more ahead of the rest of your curves, because landlord tenant law comes up in contract law and overlaps. Adverse possession comes up in other law like squatters and things like that in criminal law. So those things are practical. The rest of property law is probably the most annoying thing I've ever seen in my life, because the law doesn't make any sense. It's just one of those nonsensical things that you must learn. Speaking of nonsensical things that you must learn, let's talk about writing our first memo for our legal writing classes. Wasn't that so much fun, Royale? Didn't you just love writing your first IRACT memo? Wasn't it so
Really
clear?
did. Legal writing was probably one of my favorite classes in law school.
Good.
My very first IRAC, I had no idea what I was doing.
So
No.
tell me a little bit about how you figured out what you was doing, because again, I want this to be the last talk that they ever have to find where they don't know how Iraq works, because this is not Iraq like the war, y'all. This is IRAC, issue, rule, application, conclusion, or as I recently learned more after law school first year, was rule, application, policy, because that's more how the law school wants it written, not necessarily the issue. Like, the way they teach you is great, but they don't really want that. They really want the rule, the application, and then they want the policy behind the rule. And that shows the depth or the mastery of the rule itself. So a lot of us didn't know that we need to read the comment sections of these rules or go into depth as to why they decided. So tell them about how you finally got out of that, I don't know what I'm doing, into I kind of do. I get it now.
So remember I said law school is a trade school, right? So your professors are going to teach you to analyze issues the way that lawyers should analyze them. So our very first assignment in legal writing was to analyze this set of hypothetical facts, and we had to do it in IRAC format. So they told us what each letter stands for, but they purposely didn't show us how they wanted it done. So I just thought, 5-paragraph essay, let me turn in an essay and give out how I think the situation is going to play out. And that was not at all what they wanted. Essentially, what an IRAC model does is it takes a hypothetical and you break it down into different sections. So you're analyzing the issue that's presented because of these facts, or you're taking the rule of law and then analyzing it to these facts and then coming to some kind of a conclusion. So my legal writing professor essentially gave us a formula, and she was like, this is how I want all of your IRACs written. I don't want you to get jazzy with it. Don't add any spices. Write it exactly like this. Because legal writing in general, and this is the thing that they don't tell you in law school, it's very formulaic. The judges want to see things the way that they want to see it. They want to be clear what the rule is that you're saying the rule is. Give me your analysis. What's the conclusion that you're asking for? So the thing that they had to drill into us in law school is that legal writing is formulaic. So when you approach any kind of legal writing, you approach it from the IRAC standpoint. And it ends up helping when you get to the bar, because a lot of your grading at the bar is based on how you format your essays. So are they in IRAC form? Can the bar examiner quickly identify your issue? Can they identify your rule? Can they identify your analysis? And a lot of times formatting it in an IRAC form can get you points, even if you don't have the right answer. So the answer that you're answering may be wrong and you may not get points for getting to the correct answer, but because you analyzed it in IRAC form and you laid it out neatly, you'll get points for that. So my first writing assignment, I crashed and burned, which is what they expected us to do. Sometimes in law school, they want you to fail so that you can claw yourself up from the failure. But I learned very quickly not to fight the system. And that was something I was struggling with. I had this idea of what writing should look like in my mind, because the writing up until law school is the same. Essentially, the way that you're writing in high school, or at least the outline of how you're writing, and the way that you're writing in college, you may learn different research skills, but the foundation is the same. So when I got into law school, I had to unlearn all of that. Everything that I had spent all those years learning, I had to unlearn. And I had to teach myself that this is the only way that I can write moving forward. And even today, when I'm writing, like if I have to write a brief or a memo or a motion, it's still in some derivative of IRAC form, just because I know that that's how the judges are going to want to see it.
And you said something about that even now. So the question that I have is, in addition to learning how to do IRAC, we learned a whole new way of how to cite our sources. So it's no longer works cited like MLA and APA. It's a new version of citing your sources. What did you learn about the word blue book? I know, I'm sorry. I just had to bring it up. We had to learn a whole new language. We got a Black's Law Dictionary and a blue book, and they're like, figure it out. So, what did you learn about the word blue book that really helped you understand that law school not only teaches you how to write, but now you have to do a whole different method of writing to include your sources? So what did it teach you about, citing your work and actually being able to triangulate where you got your rules and your conclusions from?
Oh, girl, you brought back some.
I'm sorry, girl. I gotta re-traumatize you so that we can not be
No.
traumatized no more. Because the blue book for me, I would take myself and put myself in the hot seat. The blue book for me really taught me that, one, I wouldn't finna read the whole book, and two, somebody had the hack of what to do. So I got a one sheet blue book, and that's in y'all's whole free resource kit from an upperclassman who figured out the main ones that we be using. But what the heck was the blue book? Why did it scare us so much? Was it because there were so many rules, or because we realized that it was really like only 5 or 6 of them we actually used, and it just gave us a book just to scare us again?
I think it's a combination of the two,
Mhm.
because essentially the blue book is like the Bible for legal writing. So it's full of every single rule that would come into play when you're legal writing. Like how to space out your paragraphs, how to include quotations if you're directly citing something, what your citation should look like, what the abbreviations in your citation should look like, when to italicize, when to not italicize. Essentially, any rule that could be connected with legal writing was in this little blue book. And it was traumatizing because they hand you this book and they hand you your writing assignment and they're like, okay, go. So it's like, how am I've never used this book before because remember, legal, like all of my writing up until this point has been the same. So I copy and paste the URL from the article that I got it into my works cited page or whatever. And that was good enough, but that's not how lawyers cite things. So what our legal writing professor did, and I'll preface this by saying that my school took I went to UNT Dallas College of Law, and the school's mission was to approach legal education from a non-traditional way. So we did some Socratic methods, but like we had midterms. Most law schools don't have midterms. We had quizzes. We had assignments that we had to turn in essentially so that you weren't getting into the end of the semester and then finding out that you didn't really understand property. Like you had a bunch of assignments like college leading up until that point. So you knew well in advance if you were struggling with a class. And one of the things that they did was provide us with a lot of resources and a lot of tools. So I say all that to say my legal writing professor actually sat down with us and we spent a whole class just tabbing the blue book. Like this is the page you go to get your abbreviations. This is the page you go to when you need long citations. This is the page you go to when you need short citations, until it got to the point where you memorize the formula, because that's, again, legal writing is all formulaic. But after she did that, I felt better about it. So I would just carry around my blue book and all of the pages that I knew I was going to need were tabbed. But upon introduction, they're telling you, forget everything you know, do this writing assignment. And here's this little book that's going to give you the answers to your questions. But at that point, you don't even know what questions you have. So that's another reason why it was so helpful for me to be involved in organizations, because I would be able to sit down with older students that I had met in these organizations, show them my papers. They would look over it. Okay, you need to fix this citation. You need to put this here. And it created this network that I still have to this day.
That was beautiful. Isn't that great that you just segued perfectly in the conversation I wanted to go next? So at some point you realized this shit was not going to do itself, excuse my language, y'all, but that you weren't going to be able to master this just by your own knowledge. You were going to have to ask for some quote unquote help. What got you out of your shell? Because you don't know these people. And aren't these people supposed to be competing with you? And how are you supposed to convince them to help you? Because a lot of us are told that law school is a dog eat dog place and nobody will help you. And that's also true. But why, in your case, was it not true? And what can you do to help you set yourself apart so that that will be something where people can help you? Because I know you're still going to encounter the people who don't want to help, right? You're still going to encounter people who want to hoard all the answers to themselves. But what was it that helped you identify the people who would help?
Finding common interest. So for me, I only joined organizations that I felt like a personal connection to, because I'm like, if I got to go to these meetings when I could be studying, I wanted to at least be around people that I like, right? So when I joined these different organizations, I tried to join ones that I felt that I would genuinely enjoy being around the people. And as a result, you build natural connections with these people. And because they like you, you like them, y'all have clicked, they're willing to help you. So when I joined BOLSA, the Black Law Students Association, all of the upperclassmen, the 2Ls and the 3Ls, they genuinely cared about me succeeding in law school, because their mindset was always, if you win, I win, right? Like it was more like a familiar environment. So one of the things that our BOLSA did is they had like a little library of like outlines, resources. I can't remember what they're called now, but those people that put together like outlines that you can buy for different classes, or like questions and answers, study guides. They had a whole library of that, and you could come and check out stuff, or you could set up times to meet with different executive board members. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Once I had established a relationship with these people and I saw that we had something in common, we had similar interests, and they were genuinely rooting for me, then at that point I was like, okay, you need to put your ego aside. And if you need help, you need to ask for help, and you need to ask for it like yesterday. And that's what I did. And it was a big turning point for me, because I was able to have people in my corner pushing me. When I first signed up for moot court, it was because a member in Bolsa had told me that he thought it would be something I would be good at. And then I ended up going on to compete nationally. So different opportunities that I was presented, I would have never been able to find out about on my own had it not been for the connections that I made my first couple of years.
I love that. And you talked about law school grades. You knew I was going to ask you about these grades and the
Mhm.
assignments. So you had an untraditional experience, but let's talk about the traditional that maybe some of your classmates when you traveled for these competitions talked about, or just, what you read in the Reddit forums of law school. What were other people's experiences like in law school that differed from your own? And why would you recommend going to a school like yours if somebody did struggle with that type of stuff, like the not having the regular exams and assignments versus a traditional school that basically has a final? So explain the difference between that for you, learning wise. Did you learn better the way that they had it structured? Do you wish you only had a final because it didn't really help you in the long run, all the other assignments? Talk about that part.
Okay. So traditionally, the way that law school does it is you don't have any assignments. You essentially go your whole semester learning the material, and you may have one exam, and that's your final exam. So you don't really know how you're grasping the information until you take that final and get your grade back. Some schools I've heard do midterms as well as finals. So you may have like midway through the semester an exam, and then you get your grade back, and then that lets you know, okay, I need to kind of step it up in these departments. But not all schools have midterms. And then the thing is, depending on the subject, some of the subjects may change after that midway point. So for example, the way that our property, I think it was, class was broken down is we covered something up to the midterm exam. And then after the midterm exam, we covered something up into the final. And then the final wasn't cumulative. So the only thing that we were studying was everything post midterm. So even if I did really, really well on the midterm, that doesn't mean anything when it's time for the final, because none of that information is going to be repeated. And that's where I got messed up in property, because I was doing okay in the beginning, and then they added in all that extra stuff. And next thing you know, now I don't understand what's going on in class. So that was the big differences between my school. My school had similar to college, so some of the classes we had quizzes. Some of the classes required us to brief our cases, so that when we would do the Socratic method in class, we were prepared to talk about the cases. And then the turning in the briefs were like a participation grade. Some of them had writing assignments going along with the material that you were learning. We had to write briefs, or a portion of our final exam was an essay. So we had, essentially what I'm saying is, we had a lot of different opportunities to gauge our grade and our understanding before we got to the final exam. That really worked for me. And that's something that really made me choose to go to this law school, because I know me, and I know that I can't go the whole semester not knowing that I don't understand something, because for me, it's not always clear that I don't understand it. So I learned that with property. I thought that I was getting it, and then I took an exam and I did not do well. It was very low grade. And I got it back, and I remember sitting there thinking, I understood this. Why did I get this bad grade? And then I went and sat with my professor, and that was turned out to be a waste of time, because remember I said he was very theoretical, and even on one-on-one he was still in the clouds and I needed him to be on the street, but he ain't get it. So anyway, I say all of that to say that it worked for me, being able to keep track of how I'm doing and have these little reminders along the way of how I'm doing. But that's not how everyone's law school works. So what I would recommend is, as you're going through your semester, if you're meeting in your study groups or if you're studying on your own, I would recommend like pulling past bar exams, doing practice questions. There's plenty of resources online. Outlines, I'm sure Neena probably has some too, but quiz yourself as you're going. Don't wait until you get to the final exam to cram for those couple of weeks, only to figure out that a big chunk of the information that's going to be covered under the final, you don't understand.
Who, Lord have mercy, you done said something now about them outlines. So, you know I'm going to ask you next, because now we've talked about these grade options and having this different schedule. So if you guys are interested in going to law school, y'all might want to start thinking about asking questions like, how are exams graded? Do you guys have midterms? Are there assignments in between? Or is it just one final? Because when you know to ask those questions, you know what's going to work and what's not going to work for you. Do you have a student support system? Do you have outline banks? What do students get as resources to help them find success here? And now you know to ask these questions, right? Because you guys have definitely been listening to Royale's literal rendition of everything that I wanted you guys to hear from somebody that wasn't just me. You've already heard it from me. Like, I think that law school is my my what is it? Raison d'etre, something with the French carpe diem. Seize the day, because I honestly didn't know what the heck I was doing. I struggled the whole time. It was never really a time where I was just like, I really get this. It was not. I just really didn't get it the whole time. And by God and God alone did I find enough classes that were basically practical application classes that I could actually boost my GPA up to where it needed to go. Because when I was given the task of writing, your girl could write. She knew she could write. But I couldn't do it for those, big exam classes, like those classes where you only had one final. I had to do it for classes that were like seminars, because I needed time to think about it. I needed 24 hours. I couldn't do a 3-hour time slot and just figure it out and write the best paper possible. I needed time to review it. I needed time to put it down and look at it over again. And that's really what you have in real practical life. Like, you don't just get 3 hours to write memos for the rest of your life. You can budget your time accordingly. So speaking of budgeting our time accordingly, I was always told and have used this principle since law school, and it hasn't really failed me, that we should always outline first before we do anything when it comes to writing out our exams, writing out the law that we're learning. So how would you recommend outlining? Because they just like, yeah, go to the table of contents and put the things up there and then fill in the blanks. That's how they still tell people in law school. And that is so inaccurate. And if I could throw the book at them, they told me to go look at the table of contents, I absolutely would. But let's talk about that part. How do you outline in law school? And y'all have an outline bank. If you use this resource library I gave y'all, it is nothing but every outline bank I ever had in my possession created, literally yours. Just go to your outline bank. It's literally all the outlines I wish somebody had sent me my 1L year, so I didn't have to be so afraid of some of these classes I never took.
Wow. Well, first off, can I just say that like Nina's really giving y'all the game, because I wish someone prior to me meeting Bolsa, I wish that I had access to the resources that she's giving y'all, because my 1L year, all the professors were saying, okay, your finals are coming up. You need to make sure that your outline looks good. Your outline looks good. No one in my 1L year explained what an outline is, what it's supposed to do, what it's supposed to look like how is it supposed to help me study. Literally, they said what Neena said. They go to the table of contents, pull all the topics and fill them in. And so my thinking was, how is this going to help me prepare for the final? Going to a table of contents and looking at all the topics we've covered, How is that helping me prepare for the final? It's not, so I'm not going to do it. And then I got halfway through my finals, my 1L year, and I was like, okay, maybe I should kind of do this whole outline thing. So when it comes to figuring out what your outline is, or first what it is, the outline is essentially a breakdown of the semester. So it's supposed to be a study resource for you. Different people do their outlines different. So when you are approaching your outline, what I would recommend is think about what your learning style is, right? So I am a visual learner, but I also need things in a checklist format. I need like to be able to cross it off in my mind or follow a train of thought. So my outlines were always flowcharts. So at the top, I'd say assault, and then I would just kind of flow through all of the elements of assault. And I'm very visual, so there would be different colors for different torts and different colors for different topics, and this color correlated to this. All of the case law was in this color because I just needed to be able to see it and visualize it. Some people aren't like that. Some people, I had a classmate where her outlines were essentially, she would, like, let's say the topic was adverse possession, and she would input cases that demonstrated what adverse possession was. That wasn't going to work for me because I couldn't just stare at a piece of paper and read through it in order to learn or refresh myself of the information. I needed to be hands-on, doing something, seeing it come to life. So the first thing I would recommend that you do is think about how you learn information best. Do you need to build something with your hands in order for the information to stick with you? Do you need to write it down? Do you need to draw it out? My first 2 years of law school, I didn't take notes on my computer at all. I had a notebook for different classes because I was one of those people where I needed to write it down because I'm a fast typer. And if I'm typing the notes in class, I'm not listening to what you're saying. So I needed to be able to write it so that I could kind of process it. So think about the type of person that you are, what your learning style is, how you retain information, what helps you retain information, and implement that into how you create your outline. Because essentially your outline is supposed to be a resource for you. They'll end up getting shared later on, right? You're going to meet a 1L that comes after you that says, hey, I need help in this class, and you're going to share your outline with them. But the original purpose of it is to help you refresh yourself of all this information you've been learning all semester and help you quickly identify issues that come with those different topics and help you remember what the rule of law is for that issue. So that way, if you see a hypothetical on an exam, you can identify what the issue is and how to address it. So start there.
And I love that what you said is like, I decided, after my professor said that I'm gonna do my own thing. And then I was like, shoot, maybe I should. So you absolutely should definitely write a outline. One thing I have learned that helped was going back to kind of what you said earlier about your professor being in theory and you needing him in the streets. So when I needed to study for my evidence, I kid you not, y'all, this is like me not lying to y'all, being completely forthcoming. I had my friend who was a 3L at the time. She had to make up black examples, okay, of evidentiary based things to
Mm-hmm.
teach me evidence. Whatever way you have to like literally break it down to yourself, you need to break it down in the if Friday was your movie, then you go and you get all the Friday references and you find out how it related to evidence. If Boys in the Hood was your movie, then you get down in the trenches and you
Mm-hmm.
figure out how to make hypotheticals related to that. You
Mm-hmm.
have to relate it to something you understand. And if you cannot relate it to something you understand, you absolutely will be talking out your booty on the exam. I can tell you that from personal experience where I know I was talking out my booty, but you know what? It didn't matter because at the end of the day, like I'm still here, I'm still a lawyer, we still made it through. So we're telling you from personal
Yes.
experience that you don't have to talk out your butt. You can literally talk from a place of knowledge if you try to make it relatable.
Yes.
Every single concept, you should be able to break it down to me like I'm a 3-year-old and you can explain it to me at that level. I know you hear
Mhm.
that concept a lot, and I'm going to have Royale break that down in a second. In one concept in particular, which is how do I explain the black letter law? So, Royale, just get yourself ready. That's what I'm going to have you do with one piece of black letter law that you never forgot in law school and period after law school. Okay, so whatever it is, that's what we're going to break down. But the question is, can you do it? Do you know it well enough to be able to say it backwards and forwards? Because I can tell you, whoever creates it owns it backwards and forwards, and I can explain to you what that means in copyright and trademark and all forms of law backwards and forwards. But I also know how it relates to the Lanham Act for the trademarks. And I know that it's the Lanham Act where everything comes out of for confusing similarity. And the test for X is X plus Y plus Z. And if it has X, then you're going to have some cases where it works. And if you have X and Y, it's going to be this. Literally, you have to be able to talk about it like that. If you do not know law like that, you don't know law. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm not trying to make law school hard for you. You have to be able to talk about law just like that. You can't be looking at the book like, okay, rule 2 point. It don't even matter. You don't even have to get the rule 2.0. That's extra points on the exam. You need to know the test. Whatever
Mhm.
the test is, if you can't articulate the name of the test, you articulate what the test is and you'll be successful. The thing is, I got caught up my first year trying to get all the details right and the
Yeah.
rules and the numbers. And I missed the point. Like,
Mhm.
and I want you guys not to miss the point. So I'm gonna have Royale like break down something for you that's easy for her to understand, and I'll try to break down something that was easy for me. But I always really liked, criminal law, so I'll probably do a mens res, actus reus thing because it's easier for me. Because I use it a lot for my job. But what is it that you can break down in your law class? And if you get to any concept, it doesn't matter if that teacher did 85 case examples on it, okay? It doesn't matter if they gave you all these different case law that was supposed to help. If you are confused, then you go to that teacher until you can explain it to yourself and break it down and come back to the same teacher and be like, okay, so is this what happens if I get this hypothetical? Like, say Billy and John rob a store. If this happens, then this is what happens. Is that how the rule is? If you can't get that out of your mouth, then you're gonna miss so many points on the exam. So let's break it down. Black letter law, because that's a foreign concept before law school. I just thought you needed to know the rule or the case. No, the rule and the case are all connected to the holding of the case. And that's really what your law depended on. So it didn't matter that you knew the law. What did they find out with that particular law? What's the case law to back it up? So let's break that down so people can understand it.
It's funny that you say that because coming into law school, my mindset, because everyone always says, "Oh, you're a lawyer, you must like to argue a lot," right? Which I hate. Don't ever say that. Um, but the thing that I thought coming into law school was that it didn't matter what the law was, as long as you could argue your issue well enough, then you were going to come out winning in the end, right? And that's now being on the other side. That's not at all how it works. Um, but so, like Nina was saying, a lot of times you're going to hear the term black letter law, like your professor will ask you, what's the black letter law? And what they're asking you for is, what is the rule, right? Just simply put, give me the rule. And like she said, you should be able to break down a rule and give it back to your professor like you're talking to a 3-year-old, because you don't understand it well enough until you can explain it like you're explaining it to a 3-year-old. And the reason for that is there's going to be times when you have to go to court, and the judge may not have read your motion. I can't count how many times I've had hearings and the judge never even looked at my motion. So the first time they're hearing my argument is when I start speaking. And so sometimes it can be such a convoluted issue, or maybe it's an issue that a judge has never seen before. And I have to be able to explain to them, well, judge, the case law says this. In this case, this is what happened. This is what the holding was. These are the facts of my case. They are similar or not similar to this case because of this. And as a result, we're asking for this, and the law supports what we're asking for because this. So that's essentially what you're going to have to do. Regardless of the type of law that you do, you're going to need to be able to break down issues like that, because all of your clients aren't going to be the same. They're going to come to you with different issues. They may have a similar undertone. So I may have a client that has a clothing brand and another client that has a clothing brand, but the names of the companies could be different. Right? So when I'm analyzing the success of their trademark application, I could be approaching it from two different lenses. So even though I'm not necessarily in front of a judge explaining the law, I still need to be able to explain to my client why we can or cannot do X, Y, and Z. And I think a lot of times, one of the complaints that people have with lawyers is that when they're talking to them, it's like they're not speaking English. They speak in legalese because we're so used to using these terms when we talk to each other, and we use this language when we're researching the law, and we forget when we go back to our clients that we need to explain it to them in a way that makes sense. So when y'all are studying for your final exams, when you get to the end of a topic, let's say you just finished negligence, find a friend, call your mom, call your dad, grandma, auntie, sister, brother, cousin, find somebody and explain negligence to them. It's like, just tell them from beginning to end, these are all the elements of negligence, and have them give you scenarios. And then you should be able to tell them whether or not that's negligent. This is how I would study for my exams. My husband, he'll tell you all the time, it was like he was in law school with me, because I would tell him, okay, this is what I'm studying. This is what this means. Does that make sense to you? And I would have him ask me questions. If it didn't make sense, ask me another question. And then if it got to the point where I couldn't answer his questions, it was because I didn't understand the topic good enough. So I'm not ready to take this exam if I can't explain it well enough, because some of your exam questions may get detailed to the point that you have to really dive down into what the rule of law is. So honey testing is what I call it. Find your honey and test your knowledge.
You said that because I took a random worker at Starbucks and like, sit down. I'm going to teach you some information privacy law today. You finna learn. So just sit down and you listen to me talk to you about this. And if it makes sense, then I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that we just never were told that. Like, I had to figure that out on my own. And you had to figure that out on your own. But it took so long.
Yeah.
And then after we did it, we were like, dang, I should have been known to do this. I should have been doing this. So that's one thing that I think that you really hit on the head. Like, it's not about you. It's not about, look, I'm gonna tell you from my own heart, it's not about you. So stop trying to show off how smart you are by remembering and memorizing words that you can't explain. If put on the spot by a judge, what does that even mean? Because that is essentially what law school is trying to pull out of you. But we get so full of ourselves because of the words that we had to take the time to read. So we want to use them, but you can't explain them because you don't really understand them yourself. And because you don't understand them yourself, you are losing against the law school. The law school is like, law school undefeated. You won. You might have won one with just using words.
That's a very quick way to make a judge angry. If you're trying to talk your way out of an issue, there's a judge here where I'm at, and he's very quick to tell you that is not what I asked you. This is the question that I asked you. Answer the question that I asked you. If you don't know, then the answer is I don't know, judge. So trying to talk yourself out of a situation is not always an option.
And that's what costs a lot of people in exams. Now, I was always strong with writing. I wasn't so strong with multiple choice, but you can get better at any of these by practice. So that's the other part that I want to get at. We only got like 10 more minutes left in this session because I'm gonna give y'all a full hour, but then y'all gonna have to hit up Royeal and me on another day and tell us the rest of the things, because we could go on about law school all day. But what about the practice part? Because Like nobody really taught me how to practice for law school exams. Someone taught me like what to do to get more proficient. I didn't learn until I was studying for the bar exam that there
Mm-hmm.
were whole Barbary books and stuff that I could buy. I could literally buy the book while I was in law school for the bar exam and buy the book and practice all these problems so that I could understand the concepts better. And the answers, y'all get this, the answers are at the back of those books so you
Mm-hmm.
can actually pull the black letter law that you need for your classes. Now, is there a Barbary book for everything? No. But for your 1L year classes so that you can make it through, there is a Barbary book or a Kaplan book for that. So talk
Mm-hmm.
to them about the practice because I mean I was doing crazy. I went to ratemyprofessors.com. I researched the crap out of. I knew my professors so well.
Me
They were
too.
creeped out probably by how well I tried to know my professors. I was in their office hours in their face. Like, you got some problems. You got some problems. I want some problems. Like that was me. Is that you? Is that was that how long? Was I crazy for doing this?
No, not at all. That was me too. I was always in their office because I'm very much the type of person that's not afraid to ask a question. Right. So if I need an answer to my question, I'm gonna ask it. And if you can't give it to me in class, I'll be at your office hours because I'm that's just who I am. But not everyone's like that. Some people don't feel comfortable asking questions in class because they don't want, especially if your school doesn't culture that kind of an environment, or maybe you're unclear of what the what you're talking about in the first place. So asking a question is going to make you feel stupid, or maybe you feel like your classmates aren't going to handle it well, or like it's going to become a whole thing. Or if your school is doing the Socratic method, now you're going to go down a whole nother rabbit hole because the professor's going to ask you, well, what do you think about that? And then now you have to try to talk your way through something you already don't understand. So, what Neena said is absolutely true. You can get Barbary books, Kaplan books, and Barbary and Kaplan are two of the biggest programs that offer bar help. So they have like bar prep courses. I think they also have LSAT courses too. But you can get old books from here. There's a store called Half Price Books. If you go to like a Barnes and Nobles, you can get used books. You can buy them brand new. Barbary and Kaplan would actually come to our school and hand out free books for 1Ls that had outlines for all the 1L subjects, practice exams, and practice questions. You can also go to whatever state you're in and pull old bar exams because they post like answers and whatnot, and you can use those because at least for Texas the questions repeat themselves every couple of years. So if you go back the last 5 years or so, you're going to see similar questions, and that's exactly what happened when I took the bar. It was the different names, same fact pattern. So these were questions that I had already seen, and you practice them so much you know the answer. um but yeah, so those are some things that I would recommend doing, especially because depending on the circumstances, it may be free resources, it may be free practice questions, or even if they're not free, it gives you an idea of what to expect. If you are in one of those schools where your first exam is going to be your last exam, which is the final, you don't know how your professor presents questions. You don't know what to expect for a torts examination. You don't know how they're going to quiz you on whether or not something is negligence, or how they're going to quiz you on whether or not something is battery, because you've never seen a question like that before. And you don't want your final exam to be the first time you see it. So you can get those books. And you go through the practice questions, because that was something I wish I would have done sooner. If I could have presented myself with sample property questions, I would have figured out a whole lot sooner that property is a class I'm going to be struggling with. And I would have put together a game plan as to how I can address these issues that I'm having with this class, because I've seen the questions before. So yeah, y'all, get y'all some of them books.
Get y'all some books. And then let's talk about get y'all some mentors because
Mm.
apparently none of us, including my behind, let me stop cursing. I'm trying, Lord. I'm gonna get better. Having a rough day, okay? I don't know why you woke me up so many times. He woke me up at 11:30 last night when I went to sleep at 9:40. So I have no business getting up at 11:30 at night. And then he woke me up again at 1 and 2
Oh,
and 3 and 4, 5, 6, 6:10, and 6:20. I
oh,
kid
he's
you
trying to
not.
say you something.
I don't know. I was being what you would call it, stubborn. So I should have listened at 11:30, and that's why he woke me up all the other times, and that's why I feel like this today because I had a rough sleep last night, and
Yeah.
it threw everything off because I did not get a restful sleep. But he was trying to tell me I needed to do something, and I ain't listen. I'm sorry, Lord. I'm sorry. I'm gonna listen. The first time you wake me up, it don't even matter if you only give me 10 minutes. I'm gonna get up.
She's all
But
ears.
like mentor seems to be like people don't seem to understand how to seek out mentors, and then people don't know how to be mentors. So
Mm.
let's unpack both of those. That's really the last 5 minutes I have because the next thing that we have coming up will be on May 31st at 7. It'll be a Tuesday, not a Monday, because I will still be in Washington on that Monday. So I'm not going to be talking to y'all when I get off that very long plane and that very long groom transportation back from Atlanta. So I want to talk about mentorship because that's the next thing. If you want to be an IP lawyer, you're interested in being an IP lawyer, the next thing we have coming up is a legal inclusive mentoring meetup. So you will be able to talk to us on May 31st, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, and you can have these conversations answered. Okay, you can find mentors, and if you are a mentor, come here. And if you don't want to be, on the spot, that's fine, but we're going to have a speed networking thing in this session. I really, really, really need you guys to make sure you make time for this. Like I'm making time for it, so I want you to make time for it too, because I think that you need it. Whether you believe it or not, we all need mentorship. So
Mhm.
finding a mentor and then being a mentor, because I just think it's not I don't think people understand how to be mentors anymore. I think we're just so caught up in having people follow in our footsteps that we don't even pay attention to what they need.
Mm. I think too, it's because law school is such like a struggle environment. It's almost like they revel in the struggle, right? Like I had to go through this in law school, so you need to go through it too. And that's not me at all. That's not me at all. That's not how I operate. If I can save someone from going through the struggles that I went through just in a conversation or a couple of conversations, that's what I'm going to do, because nobody should have to feel like how I felt some of those times in law school. But to answer your question, when it comes to finding a mentor, one of the things that I have figured out is before I try to find a mentor, I need to figure out what I want that relationship to look like. Right. So, like, I'm in this new season now. And first thing is, mentorship never stops. Even as an attorney, a practicing attorney now, I still need mentors, especially since I started my firm. So one of the things that I realized that I needed to figure out before I started looking for a mentor is figuring out what I want that relationship to look like, because it should be a mutually beneficial relationship. I'm giving something to my mentor, hopefully, and they are giving something to me in return. So figure out what you want your relationship to look like. How often do you want to meet? What are your expectations from the relationship? So, one of my mentors is an IP attorney. She started her law firm right out of law school. And I worked for her while I was in college and then ended up going to law school. One of the things that I wanted from our relationship or want from our relationship is guidance. Like, I want to be able to call you if I have a question about a trademark application, a question about running my firm. What are some of the ways that you did this? What are some of the ways that you marketed? To I want her to be a resource for me. So, is that what you want out of a mentor? Do you want them to be a resource? Do you want them to be available to you? Do you just want their network? Because that's a whole different type of mentor mentee relationship. Are you just looking for someone who can put you in the room and then you'll take it from there? Because if so, I think that's something that you need to be upfront with. And then to answer your second question, which was, we lost Neena. She'll come back. I think her second question was, how to be a mentee. Neena, was that your second question?
Yes, or just kind of what your like what mentors should be doing. So you answered the first one, how to be a mentee, like know what you're looking for. But my mentors out there, like I think some of us, I don't know what it is. It's like in the mentor school of thought of like I shouldn't have to like help people. I think we get frustrated with helping people, especially when they have too many questions.
Yeah.
And I think that that's not fair because they don't know. But then at the other side of it, like I mean, you can't call me every hour, girl. Like I love you, but like we need some space. So like, how do you become a mentor worth worth having? Like what did your mentors do that made you feel like you were safe with them? Because this is really about curating a safe space. So,
Yeah.
what did your mentors do to help you feel that way?
The biggest thing that my mentor did is she validated my feelings. So I left my job to start my own firm, and she started her firm right out of law school. So a lot of the growing pains that I'm going through now, she's already been through. So she validated my feelings, the insecurities that I had. She let me vent and then gave me solutions for how to work through it. She gave me resources. You can read this book when you're feeling like this, or listen to this podcast when you're feeling like this. So I think that's something that mentors could do. I think that mentors have a hard time because of boundaries. And as a mentee, I know that I can be a lot. And I know that sometimes I'll text her for a question. And in my mind, it's just a quick question. But as someone who's been doing this for so much longer, she's probably like, okay, there's a whole lot more to this. So we're really going to have to break this down. So one of the things that I asked for her is, can we set up regular meetings? Like, let's meet once a month, because she's in Florida, I'm in Texas. So can we meet once a month to talk about, I don't even want to talk about like trademarks. I want to talk about how to grow my business, how to establish myself as an authority figure in this field. How do I do that? Like the business owning aspects. So I ask for regular meetings, and I come to those meetings essentially with like an agenda. These are the things that I want to talk about. These are the things that I really want to cover. And I have her for that amount of time, because I think one of the things you need to be mindful of as a mentee is respecting your mentor's time. That was a good
Oh
question.
Lord, that was a word. I was just over here. The time. So we don't have that much time. We really over time, but I just want them to kind of know a little bit more about you. So like, give them the Royale flush of like a 1 minute Royale breakdown, so they can kind of get an understanding of what you struggled with to get here. Because the girls in the group, the first thing I have them do is to write in 5 words something that they were ashamed of or insecure about, that they struggled with, and then go to the group for basically encouragement in those areas. As opposed to trauma bonding, we are uplifting you through the hardest points of your career. So I want you to just get real with them for a second, because I think they think a lot of us like that they see are successful and got their stuff together, got a husband, figured out that part of their journey. I think they think that we like just we the exception to the rule. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
just somehow the only ones who did it, and like we just had this easy. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's just because we make it seem so easy now. I know
Yeah.
I struggled today. Like today, just getting through the day was hard. But talk about that part just for a second. Get real for like take the I'm a lawyer hat off for a second. Just really talk to them like you in the kitchen and you like, look, let grandma tell you something about what I done been through, okay? And just get real with them and be completely honest, because that's really what I want them to walk away with. The reason why you're even up here in the first place. And I believe that's why I'm asking you this question, you will reveal when you tell them this. And I think that'll help them understand that like they can come to these and they don't have to be scared to come, even if they don't say anything. We're gonna talk. I'm gonna talk. I won't always be off camera. I usually try to bring in the speaker because I like to be off to the cut because it's not about me no more. I wrote a book. Y'all can buy the book if you want to buy it, but this is really about you guys, the other people that are gonna come out here and inspire people. Because what does it mean if I'm the only one mentoring all the girls in the world? It doesn't. It means like I didn't do what I was supposed to do, which was develop more leaders, and that's my only goal. So tell them the Royale story.
Oof. I struggle with my perception of failure. So I'm a Virgo, and I am a goal driven person, and I meet goals when I set them or earlier than my deadline. So I'm the first one in my family to go to college, secondary degree, all of that. So on the outside looking in, I'm very much the golden child. And I got to law school and realized that I cannot continue to portray this image of being the golden child because it was starting to mess with me mentally. Um, and then my husband and I had our daughter my last semester of law school. But again, goal driven person, I'm going to meet all of my goals by when I set them. So I ended up graduating, passing the bar while pumping, y'all. I was breastfeeding, so I'm pumping while doing this. But I say all of that to say that the thing that I struggle with is if something doesn't happen by the deadline that I set, in my mind, it is failure. I have failed myself. I have failed my family. Um, and so that's something that I'm continuing to work through, especially as I'm in this season of being a business owner, because this is not what I wanted. It is what God told me to do, and I'm being obedient. But it's hard. And so I would encourage all of you all to find yourself a safe space where you can let down the image that you portray to the world. And Neena has created that for y'all. I've been a part of her group since the trademark summit last week or the week before. And it really is a beautiful environment. So use her, y'all, because she is a resource. And don't be afraid to adjust your goals, because it can still be a goal even if the timeline or the deadline has changed.
All right. Well, I'm gonna just, girl, you just touched my heart just then. I'm just sitting here and just so proud. The safe spaces, I think that we don't talk about this enough. Is there a place that you think that you found in law school that was a safe space for you, or a place where you felt safe? And if not, right, what would you tell your law school or law schools in general about what minority women are looking for in safe spaces? And I think we're going to close with that because I want the final message to really hit so that maybe one day some university official can listen to this video and
Yeah.
hear like what we actually needed versus all the diversity programming that they create to remind us that Emmett Till and Michael or Martin Luther King was shot. Like I am so tired of seeing those programs. What would you need to create a safe space? Because it's not about us being beaten and everybody knowing that we were beaten. We know, we know. So what is it that you would have needed in law school if you didn't have it? What would have helped you have a safe space?
I had to create a safe space. So for me, my safe space was BOLSA and WOLSA, because the Women Law Student Association, because I realized that the legal field does not look like me, whether that's Black or a woman. So I needed to be around people that did look like me, that would understand the things that I was going through. What I would say to law schools and administrations is people of color and minorities are more than just a figurehead to put on your pamphlet.
Hmm.
When you are developing your curriculums, when you are interviewing them to determine whether or not they're a good fit for your school, when you're supporting them, when they're members of your school, you need to think about what it means to be a woman entering the legal field, what it means to be a person of color entering the legal field. Like, just a quick example, my school, our very first week, my 1L year, they had this, it was like an orientation. And at one portion of the orientation, they talked about how to look professional and how to dress professional when you go to court. And one of the sessions was about what to do with your hair. And the recommendation I had, like, my hair was longer at the time. The recommendation that I got was you need to pull it up into a bun. And so what that told me was my hair isn't professional enough to wear out. So I need to make sure that anytime I go into a courtroom, my hair is pulled back. And that really stuck with me throughout law school. I was really uncomfortable with wearing my hair out because I was afraid that I wouldn't be perceived as professional. So you just need to be mindful of the impressions that you set. And when you are speaking to marginalized communities, you just need to be mindful of what you say and what their existence means.
I think there is no better way for me to put that. So you guys heard us. You heard all of what we had to say. You heard what Royale really did, like lean her whole self into breaking down. Now, what you choose to do with it is going to help you the most. It doesn't matter if we give you the information. It's up to you to use the information you've been given. It's up to you to apply the resources that you have available. And it's up to you to reach out when you need help. And that's the last thing I'm going to leave you with is that Royale has joined the group to be a, what did she say when she joined? Resource. If you need a help resource, then it's up to you to develop the chutzpah to jump in her DMs too. You can't just jump in my DMs for the rest of your life. So if you are only jumping in my DMs, you're only messaging me, look, you got another person. This is another person in a group that is meant to provide you not just free, but resources, not just information or let me tell you about law school and then it's basically nothing but pay me $5.99 and you get the real game. No, this is not
Mm,
that. This is, if we'll talk about that a whole nother day because that is a whole topic. But like, this ain't that. You want information, you come get it, and then you go do the work. Because if you don't do the work, then it's just information without implementation. So it's just information. So it doesn't matter how many people come to these talks. Okay, I got a cap on this room at 100, and even after we reach the 100-person limit, I'm willing to pay the dollar or whatever else extra I have to pay so that more people can come. But are you willing to listen? Are you willing to show up every month as many times as it takes until you feel prepared for law school? Because this soundtrack is going to be available by the end of this year. You will have this available for you forever. But if you don't use it, what's the point? Why have it? Why have access to such an amazing resource that you can't use because you don't know how to implement the things inside? So that's what this is all about. This Lost Sister Circle Safe Space Talk. The reason why I started the Air Meet this year versus the Zooms and all, you're not doing the work. And now I have live analytics to track who's doing the work because Zoom doesn't let me track what you've been doing. All these other applications don't. But here, I can go in and see how many people go here and look at these meetings. I can go in and see who live participated and who engaged during here. And I can go in and see who was actually active and for how long. Because when you are applying your best self here, I want to reward you with more. But I cannot do that if you can't apply yourself. So this is a little bit of a love tap, but we're done. At 2016 until 2022, you had a lot of time to get it together. Because in 2020, we launched. But for the past 2 years, I've been trying to figure out the best vehicle to measure your success. Podia wasn't working because I still wasn't able to see all y'all success. But here, they track how much time you spend in these meetings. The more time you spend in these meetings, I promise will correlate to more success. Don't believe me? Just try. Try coming to more of these meetings and see if you don't walk into law school much more prepared than the people who came and talked before you. Because I promise you, nobody was doing this for me before law school. Nobody was providing this resource for me before law school. And the people who were providing these resources were charging for it. I promise you that. So come. That's all I will tell you to do. Come. You guys out there on YouTube, come. You're welcome in this place. But please come. Because if you don't come, you won't know. And if you don't know, you can't grow. And that's it. That's all I got for y'all. So everybody say thank you, Royale. I'm Royale. Before we close, is there an Instagram that they can reach you at? Reach out to you or email. I mean, Instagram's the easiest for me, but is there a way they can reach you on social media?
Yes. On Instagram and TikTok at Fralew Law. So it's my last name abbreviated, Fralew Law.
I heard her at FRALEW Law. So if y'all want to find her and you feeling like email's kind of scaring you, fine. You got the social media. If you need her email, please, please, please email us or send her a message in the group chat. If you're not in the group chat, well, it's in the description. So join the group chat. Stop playing with me. I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. Royale, girl, you killed that, girl, and I can't wait to send you this recording. So you are awesome, and thank you so much because I'm really proud of the fact that I literally met you 2 weeks ago, and you've already stepped up to the plate and said, I want to help more people. And that is just something to be admired. So even though y'all been singing my praises, that is really something to be admired. You left an event full and came back and poured into other people. And I just can't think of a better way to show me that what I was doing was heard because I really just wanted that. I didn't really want anything else. The thank yous and all that don't compare to seeing other people step up and mentor women, especially minority women and especially other minority women mentoring other minority women because they say that we don't do it enough. So let's change that. So bye guys. Talk to you soon.